going on, everybody? This is a little bit different of a video. We are pulling the motor out to send off. We pushed coolant on the last pass, and it's not worth hurting something more. Generally, when you push coolant, it means you have too much coolant pressure, and the cap is designed to relieve that pressure before you torch a block or something. So we'll see if it actually is torched or anything. Visually, from the outside looking in, it looks fine. So we're pulling the turbo kit off right here. We're gonna make a few upgrades to the turbo kit. I was actually planning on rebuilding a whole turbo kit, but the guy that I was going to sell this turbo kit to wasn't ready to buy yet, so we're gonna just make a few upgrades to this kit. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with the kit itself. The only downside to the On3 turbo kit is the headers are a little bit close to the valve covers. So the valve covers on a stock Coyote, like the ones that the style that I have, they're like a hard plastic or something to that effect, so they can be melted. And I've heard of people melting them in the past, and I haven't had that issue yet. So if we do run across that issue, then more than likely what we'll do is swap to either the GT500 ones, which are like an aluminum. It'll actually be better because they have some baffling and whatnot. But yeah, we are pulling the turbos off right now. We got our parts in from Force Inductions, so anyone who ever orders a set of the Force Inductions with the journal bearings, they cannot handle the oil pressure that the Coyote makes at idle. So they want all of the oil, but they just don't want all the pressure, and that's why we were pushing those seals out. Nobody thought to tell me, and I guess they didn't. The guys that had the turbos on there, they just put restrictors on there. So we ordered one of the, actually two. We got one and a spare of the, what's the brand? I think it's Turbo Smart, basically oil regulators. So 40 psi oil regulator. The Coyotes generally make around 80 to 90 pounds of oil pressure at idle. So we'll touch base on that on the turbo kit here in a little bit. So taking a break from pulling the motor out, our sleeves came in from Viking. So we have the Jeff Thomas or Thomas Racing Services long travel front struts for this car, and we had talked about what kind of car my car was a long time ago, and he was waiting for the shocks coming from Viking. So it was not necessarily his fault. I should have brought up whenever he was mentioning that my car was super heavy for what it was. I didn't think it was super heavy for S197. So, but yeah, we are pulling off the QA1s from the car, and we're going to throw the Vikings on there just to see and make sure everything's right, make sure I don't need to order anything else. I just really wanted to mess with it because I was looking forward to these for so long, and I really think these are going to be our answer to our problems on hooking. So whenever you have coilovers in the front but not coilovers in the back, you can sit too low in the front, and then for it to weight transfer, it has to extend a long ways. So me and him were talking on the phone, and he suggested some other things that I agreed with that I need to do in the rear suspension area. We're still going to stay stock 3-link for now. It's too much money to do all of this at once. It's going to be in groups. So I guess now's a good time, better than any, to tell you what the first round of modifications we're doing. So the block is going back to Fast Forward race engines. It's going to get O-ringed and refreshed, so that means new wrist pins, new bearings. I got that sent out last Tuesday. So speaking on the turbo kit side, so we're installing the Force Inductions 6673s, the journal bearing ones. One of my good buddies, Waylon Pierce, he's got the Yoshi truck. That thing is cool and it's very fast. He just set the track record for Paris, Texas. That thing's flying. But he's selling me the air-to-air that's off of that car or that truck, and it should be good for quite a lot of power. So everything that's going into this now, I don't really see why this car shouldn't make 1700 in the form that it comes back out at. So right now, with the mile an hour that it's been and the weight that it was weighing when it went that mile an hour, the ET to, or the mile per hour to weight ratio says it made 1350. I'd never been on a dyno. All the data logs that we did with Palm Beach Dyno were all on a street in Mexico. We're at the track. So it should be significantly faster. As you can see, I'm having trouble with this GoPro. It's really hot in the shop. You can probably see me sweating very bad. I'm having trouble with the suction cup not sticking to the windows that I'm putting it on. That's all I have. I'm working with a budget setup, and I actually missed some of the recording that I wanted to do because I only have one GoPro that I needed to charge, and I wasn't going to let that stop my production because I really needed to get this done over a course of one weekend, and then I would have time to do some of the other things that we're doing. So right here you can see I'm trying to set ride height. I'm trying to see where I need to set it, and it's trial and error. So I just kept adjusting it, and then I got to the point where it's too late, and I had to work the next morning at 7 o'clock in the morning. So now I'm back to adjusting the coilovers, trying to set a good ride height. I set it there and I didn't like it. I thought it was too high. Now I'm checking how much travel it has, and I'm seeing that it does not have the amount of travel that it should have, and I'm kind of curious as to why. So this was after work on I believe a Friday. So I'm not going to bother Jeff, and I'm sure he would answer and respond back. Every time I've had questions for this dude, he's always answered and probably gave me a whole lot more information than he really needs to. Here I'm getting distracted by Natalie, my girlfriend, and now the dogs. So now I'm checking out to see where the extension is now. Still about 3 to 4 inches too low. So I talked to Jeff the next morning, and he told me what to check, what I was doing wrong. So basically the car is sitting up too high, and the strut is already out 3 to 4 inches of the actual shock. And so there's basically nothing I can do with how tall the front tire is on these wheels and how high the rear of the car sits. I cannot go below what the rear of the car sits, and it's just a nice set of AFCO coilovers, or not coilovers, they're just struts, and a spring. It's a BMR drag spring. See, I'm still having problems with that suction mount, but when the rear of the car sits above the front of the car, it has to get past the point of transfer before it starts transferring. So that's where you see a lot of radial cars live, because radial cars, instead of transferring weight to the rear to put the power down, they push the rear of the car into the ground and leave the front down. That's how they're able to go so fast, and that's how they're able to not wheelie generally, because their rear of the car is just so much higher than the front. But now we're back to pulling the motor again. So pulling off all the front accessories, and we are just about ready to pull it out. Got a few odds and ends to disconnect all the stuff on the bottom. But here we are. Trans bolts taken out. We got the converter bolts taken out. The starter's taken off. So I think we're just I think we just gotta get the cherry picker on there, and should come right off. So we'll have a couple of lines, and this is the first time that I've actually pulled this engine in this car. I had it put in before by Kenny Rice. So yeah, we got all that taken care of off camera because I didn't have good enough lighting to show you guys anyways underneath there. So I'm gonna set up a time lapse for you guys, and you guys can watch me struggle to pull it out. Alright, so now we're starting to get to the portion where I'm kind of worried. I'd never done this before. Like I said, this is the first time. I was learning while I did it. The reason I didn't do it myself the first time when I had the sleeved rod pistons motor put into this was because I was still living with my parents then. So they don't have what I would say a nice enough shop for me to feel comfortable to do it in. Luckily, I got a steel on the house that I own right now, and it has a 30 by 40 shop on it, and I'm loving it. I need to get some AC in it, but that's the down the road project. So trying to figure out how I'm going to grab a hold of this. I decided to pull the intake off because of the hoist connections that I have from Harbor Freight. They are not the longest. So I pulled the intake off, that way I didn't crack anything on it. I plan on reusing that and really seeing where the intake manifold explodes at, how much boost. I've heard the 18 manifolds, non-ported, people have been 35, 40 pounds boost. So we're going to try the same thing and see what happens. But back to what we're doing. So we are, or I am, trying to figure out where I want to grab a hold of this motor. So my buddy Kenny that had done this before, all the motors he pulls out, he normally pulls them from the bottom. The only lift I have is a 4-post, so that makes that extremely difficult to separate the body from the K-member. So we trying to figure it out. It takes me quite a long time to feel comfortable with how I plan on picking this motor up. Coyote engines are pretty heavy. They're not the heaviest, not like big block heavy, but definitely heavier than LS. So we're working on that. This is a good time for me to tell you guys I do have a few things for sale off of my car. So for starters, I have the ID 1300 injectors. As you saw in the last video, they ran perfectly fine, no issues. If you tell me that you saw this from the video, I'll give you $150 off of the asking price. I'm asking $1,300 for them. I paid about $1,700 for them about a year ago, and I've had them cleaned since then. So they're good injectors. I just needed something bigger. I have a boost leash as well, the boost controller I was using, and those are around $600 brand new, and I'll sell that for $450. If you come to it, like I said from the video, I'll give you $100 off of that. So back to the video. I'm trying to keep everything as organized as I can. You've probably seen it the whole time. I've been putting everything in Ziploc bags and labeling where it came from. when I had my Trans Am many years ago, I thought I would remember it where everything went. And then you get to the end and you're starting to put everything back together, and you're like, what bolt is for what? And you have everything together. It's just a mess. It's better just to label everything. Ziploc bags are, $10, $15, and you get the reassurance of everything being its own package. So sadly, when I was going to pull the motor out, I did not hear it because I had music playing, but the GoPro died. So I'll walk you through what happened. So I pulled it out. I had the headers on. I had the wastegate tubes on, everything like that. Those were hitting, so I put those off to the side. And it really was easy coming out. Like it wasn't any issues at all. So now we are starting to tear the motor down, and I'm learning that they use a lot of 12-point sockets on everything that's inside of the valve covers. So I don't have very many 12-point sockets. All I have is half-inch 12-point sockets. So, and I needed a balancer puller. And I knew the Harbor Freight one that I could get locally was not gonna work. So I decided to wait for my buddy AJ to be back. He was gonna be back on the Monday, which is this right here is Sunday when I'm pulling all this out. So pull that bolt off, and that's when I learned this. If you don't have an ATI specific balancer puller, then it's just it doesn't work very well. So we got it out. Once we tore everything down, I can see some white spots on the head gasket. I'll add a picture at the end of the video of the head gaskets, and also a sneak peek of what else we are doing. So that's going to be a whole nother video in itself, and that's probably going to be a very long series, but we are going to have a whole lot more adjustment, a whole lot more control over everything. With the upgrades we're doing outside of the motor, we are going to be able to control the power that we're going to pick up a lot better. We're going to be able to get faster in between rounds, actually be able to see what is going on with everything instead of just having a boost ramp in it. But y'all comment, like, and subscribe, and we'll see y'all later.